Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Always Moving podcast. I am your host, Lyndon Suvanto, and today I am honored, I am blessed, I am with Olympian Maddison Pearman. How are you today?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I am swell. I got back from Vegas on a red-eye flight, and I'm kind of tired,
Yeah.
and it's very humid here.
Yeah. The
How
jet
about
lag,
you?
yeah, the jet lag's hitting me a little bit. I think I had beginner's luck like in the fall when I went to World Cups. I didn't
Yeah,
have any jet lag going there or back. And then when we went to Beijing, I didn't have any jet lag. Like I was fine. And I was like, perfect. I know how to do this. And I came home and like the first night I slept 11 hours and I was like, perfect. And then the past like 3 days, I've been getting up at 4 and just like
yeah,
laying in bed for a couple hours. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll do some laundry. I'll just
yeah,
do some
exactly.
chores. I like can't fall asleep anymore. So yeah, it's hitting me a little bit.
What's um What's the temperature like in Canada compared to Beijing? It's kind of
um
similar.
it was to be like when we first got there, it was pretty nice. Like in the like just below zero or just above zero a couple days. And then one of the days when we were like I was biking outside, I was in like a tank top and my bike shorts and it was really warm.
Yeah,
And then like 2 days later, there was a huge snowstorm, which apparently Beijing doesn't get very much snow like in the city. I think it's like when I searched it up, it was like an inch or something in
yeah.
February, and it was like a full-on snowstorm. And like the volunteers were out like making snowmen and playing in the snow. So it's like it was really cute to watch that. But that was kind of in the middle. And since then on, it was actually pretty cold, like
Yeah.
-10, -15, even sometimes. Like Beijing wasn't as cold. I know the mountains got really cold a few times and they had to postpone or cut off some of the competitions. But overall, I would say it was a little similar to maybe
Yeah.
like February, March.
Nice. So before we dive in, because I'm super curious about your experience, before we dive in, do you want to give a little introduction? Maybe say how you got into speed skating, or even announce that you're a speed skater.
Yeah, so I guess I'm an Olympic speed skater. I do long track, so there's two different long track, short track disciplines. I do long track, which for me it's not like as cool, I guess, watching it. Like short track is them when there's a bunch of people on a like basically a hockey rink skating around trying to like not kill each other, and long
Yeah.
track there's just like two of us skating. But yeah, I'm from Ponoka, Ponoka, Alberta, I guess. And I started growing up, or I started skating in the Red Deer Club. My mom grew up skating in Winnipeg. And so when my parents got married, and they like both my parents are really athletic, so
Yeah.
they just wanted to put us in a ton of different sports. And because my mom grew up speed skating and there was a club close, we decided that that was something that we all wanted to do as a family. And both my sisters and I all skated. And then I did a bunch of other sports growing up, but speed skating was always the one thing that I loved doing. And it was like my main passion in
Yeah.
sport. So when I graduated high school, I moved down to Calgary, which is where the National Training Center is. And then I've been down here since. It's been 8 years now, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been skating for like 20 years. So it's been a long time.
Well, that's exciting. Congrats. And
Yeah.
before we jump in, how did you decide between long and short?
I actually wanted to do short track up until I was about like 16, maybe. Like
Yeah.
you do both of them growing up, especially if you don't live in Calgary, just because we don't have a covered oval. So you kind of have to do short track most of the
Okay.
season.
Yeah.
And I went to junior trials, like junior world trials for short track and did like decent.
Yeah.
But then that same year I went to junior trials for long track and I made the junior world team. And then I was like, maybe I'm better at long track.
Hey, wait a second.
Yeah, and just my body type and my stature, I'm a little bit taller,
Okay.
and a lot of the short trackers are a bit smaller and able to move around a bit quicker. So I think just like body type and physique, I just
Yeah.
was better suited for long track. And then I excelled in it when I got a little bit older. I excelled more at long track. Much to my parents' happiness that I chose long track. It's a little bit safer. So
Okay. Yeah.
very happy that I chose that one. But yeah, it just seemed to work better for me. And although I do miss racing short track, like we do train it, I think I made the right decision.
I'm gonna say it worked out pretty well, I think.
Yeah.
So one of my most recent episodes, I talked to a friend about water polo because I didn't really know much about it at all. And so I'm curious, in speed skating, do you want to run me through like a technique, the strategy? Because with you, the long track, there's got to be like a conservation and then bursts. And how do you kind of approach a race?
Yeah. So it kind of depends on what distances you are. With long track, you usually specialize. There's three typical like specializations, which is sprinter, middle distance, and then long distance skater. So the distances are 500,000 meter, 1500 meter, 3K for women, 5K for women, and then the men just do 5K and 10K. So the 3K is really only a women's distance, and then the 10K is only a male distance. So it really just depends on what kind of, again, your body, what you're best suited for, if you're a sprinter or long distance. For myself, I'm a middle distance skater. So I do thousands, 15s, and I train with like the middle long distance group. So for the 500 and 1,000, you're definitely just like sprinting, going out as hard as you can. You don't really, there's not much conserving because it's, all sprint. The 1,000's like a longer sprint. And I would say, like, comparing it to track and field, the 500 is like the 100, 200's closer to the 1,000 meter.
Okay.
And then the 15 is kind of where you start having to do some more pacing, and there's more tactical, or it becomes more tactical when you get to that, just because the 1,500 is 3 3/4 of a lap. So it's basically 4 laps. And it's by far the worst race, but maybe the best race. It's the hardest race. Like, you have to go hard and you just die and hold on. You basically just have to do that. So that's when you need to go fast, but you have to also not go full out, because you know that you're going to die. Like, everyone dies that last lap. It's just whoever can hold on and die the least, basically. So that's kind of like what my mentality always has been. And what my mom used to tell me, she's like, with the 1,500, you go hard and die. Like, everyone does. It's just how if you can hold your technique together and die the least. And then, 3K, 5K, 10K, that's where you need to start pacing yourself, right? Like, you are going as hard as you can, but you're maintaining a speed that you can hold for the 3K or the 5K. The 10K is insane to me. 25 laps. No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Like, our teammates are pretty good at the Canadian men in the past couple of years have gotten really good at it. And just like 2.5 laps, 4 laps is max for me. Like, I can't race any longer than that. But so again, it just depends on what discipline you are in.
So with your, say, like the 1,500, for example, is it ideal to right away just be right in the front?
So with with the long track, there's 2 skaters, right? And you go and you switch laps, or you switch lanes every lap. So in terms of, I guess, you want to get out in front, as in like your lap times. Because you're kind of racing, like, you have a pair in long track, but you're more or less racing yourself in the time, because it's whoever comes across with the fastest time. So it is typically good to like get out with a fast lap times in the first couple laps. Typically, the people that go and are a little bit more consistent and don't like drop as much in the laps, they can't win as much anymore, just because people are going out so much quicker and they're banking speed at the beginning of the race, and then they're going to die, but they've gone,
enough of a little lead.
They've got enough of a lead at the beginning. So it is fun to watch, especially when you're watching on TV. They have like the split time. So the split time is like from when you start, it's always finishes at, I guess, I don't really know the end. 500. I don't know, like one of the straightaways ends there. And so the split times are how fast each lap is going. So it's fun to see, like, coming around. If it's green, that means you're going faster. If it's red, then you're going slower. So there was a couple of races in the Olympics where it was getting so close down to the wire each like lap time. It was like a couple seconds, and then it was a couple tenths. And so that's like really fun to watch.
When you're going around, can you see your time, or do you have communication with your something?
So if you've ever watched speed skating, sometimes when we're coming around, they sometimes pan to the coaches, and they're called lap boards. And so you'll see numbers. So it's like, if you do a 28-second lap, it will be like, let's say you did 28.2 second of a lap, they'll put the 8 and the 2, because we always know how fast we're like going. If you're going really fast, you're in the 20s. If you're going slower, you're in the 30s, right? You're never going to be going like any slower, any faster. At our level, you won't be. So, if I come around and I see an 8.2, that means I did a 28.2. So for me, middle distances, it's a little less relevant than it is for the longer distances, right? Like for me, I come around, I'm typically going as fast as I can anyway. So it's nice to see those lap times and kind of be aware of where you are and being like, in the 15, you're like, okay, I really need to push it now. Like I'm going fast, but I really need to push it here because that lap wasn't fast enough, whatnot. But in the 3K, 5K, 10K, they really need to see those lap times because they're doing so many laps. They're pacing themselves.
And to see
being like, okay, I'm holding 31 second 0.2 laps, right? Like I'm holding, and then they see that they can drop a little bit, or if they're starting to speed up, they can see that. So it's really good to be able to communicate that with your athlete on the more longer distances. But for us, we still look at it on the sprinter side. It's just less relevant because we're already going typically as fast as we can. We're not usually going to be slowing down, trying to speed up. Nice.
So what kind of training do you do before? Do you do a lot of off ice training? Or what kind of stuff like benefits you as a speed skater the most?
So our season is typically begins like first week of May, and it goes all the way until the middle of March. So we have about 6 weeks, the end of March and all of April to kind of do whatever we want. And it's just less structured. So we all keep active just because you're so used to training. You can't like sit around for 6 weeks. You got to keep your base somehow. So we just do a lot of like whatever we want. But once the summer hits, because we don't usually get ice until June or July. So May, June, the summer is really like a lot of biking. We do a crap ton of biking. We get in the weight room a lot, and then we do dryland programs / imitations. So dryland is a lot of like, you're imitating speed skating off ice. So there's a lot of different exercises, and we use slide boards. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah.
Hockey players use them. So we do a lot of that. Basically just like working the muscle memory and getting strong in basic position, because you can always exaggerate and do more off ice than you actually can on ice, right? So that's a lot of what we do in the summers to build that strength and build the aerobic base, because once we start skating, the season usually starts, and then you start racing, and you have to make sure that you get a good enough aerobic base that will bring you all the way to the end of our season. Because our season is very long. Like we start racing September to March, like that's really long. So you can't really build fitness in the season. Like you can build racing fitness, but you got to make sure you do a lot of that in the summers. So we do a lot of biking, which, I've learned to love. I didn't like biking as much, but I've learned to love it a bit more. And we do inlining too, which is just like our speed skating with rollerblades, basically rollerblades. So that's a lot of it. And then once we get in the ice, we start doing that a little bit more, but August is usually when we get really onto the ice. It's kind of nice to stay off. Like we love skating and we want to race, but when you're on ice every single day, once we like September to March, you and I, it's nice to like be outside and do all that training. We do a lot of different cross training just because speed skating, you don't have ice all the time.
I was going to ask, because like when I was playing handball and stuff, we do all the like running and all that stuff before, but then the first time we get in the gym and you're playing, it's just, you're so excited. Is it the same?
Yeah.
When you get on the ice, you're just like, I'm doing a lap as fast as I can.
You're like, you're like, man, for me, I'm like, I've been doing this for 20 years. And then I get on the ice and I'm like, I don't know how to speed skate anymore. Like, how do I do this? Especially with like our club skates, because the long track usually comes in a little bit later, and we go up to Winsport and do short track there. So they're fixed blades, and then ours are clap. So they like release.
Yeah.
So then you're kind of used to the short tracks, and then you go on, and then you're like, and you're like, oh God, I'm going to fall. But once you like get on and do a lap, it's like, this is for me. I'm like, I want to skate. I love skating. Yeah. So it's so nice to get back on, and then you get right into it and you're like, if this is easy, I know how to do this. I know how to skate.
No, I just slipped. There was tape on my skate. Yeah. So Olympics, you did it.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
It's incredible for sure. There was the last couple of years have been tough just for everyone. We didn't really have a season. We didn't have ice for a really long time. We didn't get to race. So I had really no idea where I was in terms of like Canada and within our team. It's really hard. Like you do as much training, but if you don't race, you just don't know where you are. And, with the World Cup team I made in the fall, that was the first time I made the fall World Cup circuit. So I knew that was setting me up better for the fall or for the winter for the Olympic team. But, you know, with the fall World Cups, you can send up to like 15 per gender if you have a lot of spots. But then the Olympics, you can only send max 9 per gender. So, you know, even though then I made the World Cup team, I was like, you know, there's still like 11 of us that are there, and we still have to qualify those spots as well. So, I had a really good fall World Cup. I skated well. And then unfortunately with COVID, we didn't have an Olympic trials. It was supposed to be in Quebec City just after Christmas. And with the rising cases, and then some of the short track Olympic team got COVID, and we just decided, or I guess I didn't decide, but, you know, our organization decided that, you know, it just wasn't safe for us to go there. And they didn't want to risk putting us in that situation, because if you did test positive within December or even January, there was a good chance you weren't going to the games. Because China had some really strict policies. Like you had to test negative. At one point you had to test negative like 5 days in a row, 2 weeks leading out of the game. So if you were, you know, a viral shedder, if you got COVID at the beginning of January and you were like recovered and everything, but you were still testing positive, you wouldn't have been able to go. So they decided not to host trials, and they didn't handpick a team, but they had a criteria based off how well we did at the World Cups and where we were ranked. They chose our team, and, you know, I did well enough, and I was able to qualify for the 1,000 and the 15. So, as much as it sucked, you know, we all like to race, we want to like earn our spot that way. But I did well enough in the fall to, you know, solidify myself in the spot. So I'm really glad that, obviously we got the opportunity to go and didn't have to go and potentially get COVID. That was a big stressor basically since, the past couple years,
incredibly stressful.
Yeah, for us, basically since September, I've been in a bubble. My own little bubble, I guess. I haven't been able to go and see a lot of family and friends. I just haven't been like, you know, comfortable. And when we got to the World Cups, you know, you're going over to Europe, and, you know, we had a couple teammates test positive while we were in Norway, and they had to stay there for 2 weeks, and you just don't want to put yourself in that position. So that was stressful. And then once the Olympic team got named, which was in the beginning of January, we had to keep that a secret because there was appeals and they were going through stuff. So then but then we also had to go in a bubble. So I wasn't allowed to see anyone other than my teammates, like not my family, and be able to celebrate. So, and then you got to try it and you're like, well, I don't want to get stuck here. So it was like, they were really like, we had PCR tests every day. Like we didn't have to worry about any of that. And I felt really safe there, but it was just, you know, so stressful.
There's so much this extra that you're going to the Olympics, but you also have to
have so many more things going on, and we had so many more like protocol to follow and health declarations and all this kind of stuff, and proving that we were vaccinated or that we had PCR tests. And as much as like I don't think it took away from a lot of it, I think it did take away from a bit of the experience, especially in the fall, I think, going to World Cups, because you weren't allowed to really like, we weren't allowed to go out and do anything. You weren't allowed to like go out and explore, and it was kind of frowned upon more to go and interact with other countries. And even when we were at the games too, you still kind of felt like, I don't want to go and like hang out with all the other countries, because I don't want like, you don't know what's going on. You don't want like the COC to kind of like get mad at you for interacting with like a bunch of different countries. So that part like was unfortunate, but overall, you know, it was a great experience to go. And I'm just more looking forward now to Italy in 4 years, when like, fingers crossed, it will be like normal, and like it will be like the typical Olympics should be. And family and friends can come. I think like that was unfortunate that, you know, as much as I would have liked my 2 sisters to come, I think I would have, my 2 parents, I really, really wish that they would have been able to come and see me skate at my first Olympics, because like they've been an amazing support and have sacrificed so much for me to get to this point, and have helped me out so much being here. And the bank of mom and dad never stopped. So, you know, that's the one thing I really wish they could have come, but you know, they watched a lot, and I was able to do like the athlete moment. I don't know if you guys ever saw that, like in Tokyo, when you could come and after your race, there was like live family members and stuff. So I did that both my races, which was like surreal to be able to be like, I'm like, it's 2 a.m. in Calgary, but you guys are up watching me, and I was able to say hi and like talk over my race a little bit. So that was really cool.
That sounds, there's so much I want to dive into and everything you just said. So we're going to start at the beginning. What was the feeling like when you found out that you were going to go?
It was a lot of like overwhelming kind of relief, I guess. because, you know, I knew that I had put myself in a good position. And then when, you know, trials got canceled, you just still never know what
evaluators or whatever
what they're going to do, right? There were so many, they did stay very objective, but there are so many factors coming in, and, you know, people were injured and there's appeals, and, you know, you just don't know kind of what they're going. So that was a lot of stress, even though I was like, I know I did well, but at the same time, you're just like stressed and waiting and being like, can you just please announce this? Because, you know, I'm also like kind of assuming I'm on the team, but then you're like, what if I'm not? What if I, you know, somehow get screwed over and all that? But so much relief. And like, you know, unfortunately I found out alone in my like apartment because, you know, I wasn't at home. I didn't have anyone to go and celebrate with. But, you know, I immediately called my parent. Well, I had to wait a little bit because my dad was on the farm. So I was like, Dad, let's go. Like, I want to call you. And like, he's very much like, he has a flip phone still. He doesn't know how to use technology. So it's not even like I could FaceTime both of my parents. Like, I had to wait for him to get home because I wanted to tell them together. And they both, you know, kind of assumed as well, like I did well enough. So it was so overwhelming. And just like thinking back to, you know, 4 years ago, I had a bunch of teammates make it, and it was a bit of a long shot at that point 4 years ago, but, you know, I still thought that there might be a chance. And obviously I didn't make it. And it's been a long journey of, you know, I'm 26 now, and, you know, one of my teammates is 20 who made it. And it, like, some people just make it really young, and some people it takes a little bit longer for you to get into the career. And speed skaters have a wide variety of when you start peaking. Like a lot of people now are peaking like 25 to 35, like it's longer. So I was like, there's many times where I'm like, I'm not good enough to ever make this point. I should just give up now. But I'm glad I didn't, because, you know, the past 2 years of training and not racing, I think was really good for me to just train through it all and then make the team. It's been a lifelong dream of mine, like since I was 5 when I started skating. And we had some family friends, really close family friends that skated in Vancouver, and one of them won a medal there. And it was that kind of solidified that it's like, you know, if they can do it, if I keep working hard, that, you know,
I can do it.
I can do this. Like, it is possible. And, you know, I've had a lot of people over the years say, you know, you're really talented. You just have to keep working at it. Like maybe peak is just a little bit later. And obviously it is like 26 and making my first games. And it's still, a surreal feeling.
That brings me to when I made the Team Canada for the Pan Am Games in Toronto 2015, because I was a goalie for the handball team, and I think we were 6 or 7, and they were only taking 2. And there was one guy who was a lock. He's been on the team forever. So it was like this one position. And then it was a 4-year window building up to the games. And it was one of the last games. I played a really good match. I'm like, oh, I think that's it. I think I did it.
Like, I think it.
And then it was just months of just nothing, just silence, nothing. And then one day I got an email and they're like, yeah, you made it. And I'm like, oh God, like I did it.
You saw it and you're like, my heart dropped when I like finally got the email. I was like, oh my God, like
it was that stress of just waiting, like just tell me I didn't make it, or tell me
tell me I did. One of the two, give me something.
And then I remember Canada Day came and I was just watching the fireworks and the anthem played and I cried. It was just like, I was so overwhelmed. I'm like, 4 years, my whole career built to this. And it was like,
my teammates won a gold medal in the women's team pursuit. And we went to the medal ceremony that evening, and like, even just like walking into the medal venue, like I started getting emotional, and we saw them come out and I started like crying. And then like they played the national anthem and like I bawled. I even put up like a picture, like one of my friends, like one of my teammates that was there took some pictures of me like bawling, and I put it on. I was like, it was such like, I mean, I say it was embarrassing, but then I was like, I don't think it like, it wasn't really, it was like, you know, kind of like I was sitting there bawling and like, but it's just, that's such
it's the 20 years of everything you did.
And like, obviously I wasn't up there winning, but like seeing my teammates win it and like being surrounded by our team and like knowing that obviously it's possible in 4 years, but it's such a weird feeling to hear. Like, we belted out the national anthem. I love it. Yeah,
I
it
hear the
was.
anthem anytime now. It doesn't matter where I am. It's like, take me back.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It gets me emotional every time. And like tonight at the Flames game, they're like, I don't know what they're doing. They're, what's the word? Not inviting us, but, celebrating us before the national anthem. So we have to wait out there and like watch an anthem.
You're breaking down.
Like, oh my God.
Oh, it's coming.
Waterproof mascara. I'm going to be crying because it's like so emotional. There's going to be everyone there cheering for us. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I'll make it through this.
Well, before we started the podcast, we were saying how we're both from small towns and people didn't really know our sport or who we are. And when I was crying at Canada Day fireworks, I was just some big guy crying randomly at some fireworks and no one knew what it meant.
Like, okay, what's this guy crying about?
Over there, but
yeah.
So getting to Beijing, enough about me crying. Let's get back to you at the Olympics. What was it like traveling over, and when you first arrived, what was the village like? What did you have to do to get into the village? And
so we had just like a commercial flight from Calgary to Vancouver, and then we were in Vancouver. We all got sent to this one terminal, a part of Vancouver that was just for Team Canada. And so we got there, we all had to go do rapid tests before we got on the flight, as well as like 3 PCR tests within like 96 hours. I think we did one night. We did one 2 weeks before we were supposed to leave. We did one 96 hours, one 24 hours or 48 hours before. And then when we got there to the airport, we had to do a rapid test. So it was a lot of testing just to get to the airport. And we had a chartered flight right straight to Beijing, which was really cool because it was then just Canadian athletes and staff on the flight, and they did this big like welcome for us, and Fly the Flag was on the Air Canada, so that was really cool to see that. And then we had like little gift things on the plane, which was like, oh my God, more. This is the start of the free things, I guess. Now I don't want to sound like shallow and everything, but I'm like, oh my God, we're getting so much free stuff, like already, it's starting already, right? And that was really cool. And then once we got off the flight, it was like straight following all these lines of like the health declarations, the custom declarations, like making sure that like we've had all the right information in. And thankfully, like our team leader is super organized, so she had us doing all of this stuff beforehand. Like she was like, you guys need to do it. She sent it, explained it, because then we got there and people were still like filling all this out, and we just like zip it through and then go through customs, and then we had to do another PCR test, and then we just had to wait at the airport for a couple hours, waiting for bags, waiting for results. We didn't really, to be honest, know what was going on. And then we're all just, and we were aware that we kind of had like, our team leader was like, when we get there, we might be there for like 6 hours. Like, we don't know what's happening. Like, they have to go through all of this, get the test results, and then get all of our bags, obviously. So once that happened, then we got our bags, we went to the village and had all of our bags. And it was so hectic because we were getting through, and then we had to also all go to our apartments and then isolate there until our test results came back. And so we thought we were waiting at the airport for the test results. Meanwhile, we actually were just waiting for those to get our bags to then go to then wait more. So it was a very overwhelming day with that. And then we got up to the apartments, and so there's 8 girls, and 3 of the girls were coming later, like a few days later. So I was in that apartment alone. And so then and then walking in and again, seeing all these like goodies and on our bags, like our Lulu bags just sitting there with like, I was like, this is so much stuff. And then it was even more stuff than I thought, because I was like, how did they stuff everything in these bags? And like, then, the Olympic committee gives you like little goodies and bags too. And so I was just like going through all of this, and I'm just like, oh my God, there's so many things, so overwhelming. I just started like crying alone because I didn't know where my other teammates were, and I was like, oh my God, like
what is going on?
What is going on? I'm here, there's all this stuff. Like it was a very, and then I was like, I'm so hungry, but I can't go in and get any food because we have to isolate. And the first day was like a gong show. And then the next day I woke up and I was like, I'm not jet lagged, I'm fine, let's go.
I'm good to go.
We were really close to the dining center, which was really nice. That was like, it was small and there was like a ton of different, it was just like a bunch of cubicles, right? That you had to, and so like the first couple days, actually maybe only the first day, they were all like frosty. So you couldn't really see anyone. So you're just like kind of sitting in there, which was like kind of nice. Like when you were looking across, because then sometimes like randos sit there, but you know, if there's people beside you that, you know, was fine. And then like the next day or 2 days later, they were all clear. So then you're like, oh, okay, now like I can see the people. But then if someone sits right across from you, you're just like, hi, like they keep looking at you and you're like, can't really hear them. So if they start trying to talk to you, you're like, sorry. And yeah, the food was like I'm not a very picky eater. So like the first couple of days I was like, oh, this food is fine. Like it's pretty plain, but like you got your protein, your carbs, your vegetables, it's fine. And then like a weekend, I was like, I can't eat this food anymore. They're not changing it up. They changed it up a little bit. And then like when more people got there, they just like stopped changing it. And I was like, I can't keep eating this.
So do they bring you like a tray of, does someone bring you a tray of food, or how does
it was like a kind of a buffet style. So we'd go and you'd get your tray and then they would serve you. So you just, there was a bunch of different like it was like called hot pot portion that like a lot of people started going to. So it was like dumplings, noodles, veggies, and they would just like kind of boil it and meat, boil it and then put it in. And that was like the big thing. A lot of people like that. But then there was just like, you know, pizza and pastries, and it was like Western food, and it really wasn't Western food. And then Asian food, and then there was halal and gluten-free stuff, and there was supposed to be vegetarian things. So like they did kind of get like hit those bullet points, but I know in previous games there was like actually like Western food, Asian food, whatnot, and it was actually like more like Americanized or whatnot. Like there was just like meat and broiled, like, or not broiled, like steamed vegetables and like rice and noodles, and like didn't really change up the beef and the meat or anything. And there was sweet and sour pork like 4 days, and I like loaded up on that. I was like, this is good stuff.
This is the day.
This is it. Yeah. But for the after like 3 weeks, it was like, I can't eat this stuff anymore. And like nothing was appetizing. And it was just, I think, because when you're away for so long and you can't cook your own food, like even sometimes I come home and I'm like, I have so much food and I don't want any of it. Right. So that was kind of like where I got to that point there. And there was a Pizza Hut and a KFC that was like free, that we could just go down in the plaza and get. So I definitely got that a few times. But again, like you're there to compete, and some of the other sports that don't require as much, I don't want to say fitness, but like
I know what you mean, like
like the sports that are like more like snowboarding and skiing, where it's like I just got to do flips. Like you have to be like mentally and core, but like for me, I'm like I have to like
cardio, everything's got to be good.
All of that, I have to be like primed with like nutrition. So a lot of those guys were eating pizza, and some of the hockey boys were eating like, I think, the KFC and the pizza a lot. So I was like, nice. I wish I could do that, but I can't.
When at the Pan Am Games, the food was incredible, because they had the booths, and it was like restaurants from all over Toronto, and you could eat 24/7, whatever you wanted. And it was like, oh man, our tournament ended, and we were there probably 3-4 days after, and we just
really?
Games are done, and just go.
And I think maybe without COVID, it might have been different. I know they might have not been able to like get as much food in, or needed to make it a bit more like easier because of whatnot. I don't know. Maybe like with non-COVID, it would have been a little bit different, but who knows? It might have been the same there as well without COVID. But I mean, I still ate the food. It was still like, you know, I still ate it, but I just was like, just want something else. I just that sweet pork.
So you kind of said earlier you weren't allowed to really mingle with the other countries at all.
Like I think we were allowed to. I know with our tower, they didn't want any other countries coming into our tower. So like I guess not each country, but like there was towers that had like, because Canada had such a big team, we had the full tower to ourselves. And then some of the other towers had to share, but I know like Team Canada didn't want, and I don't know if it was just Team Canada or if it was also the Olympic Committee being like, you know, we don't really want people intermingling as much. And so it wasn't super frowned upon, or I guess we weren't allowed to. It was just, you just felt a little,
I shouldn't do that,
unsure of what we were really supposed to do. And especially since, you know, people were still testing positive when we got to the games. you know,
You don't want to risk it.
they were fine in their own country, but when they came here, or like they got COVID before they came, and then they were testing negative, and then they got it there. And so there was a lot of like the unknown of, you know, I don't know what you guys are doing, or I don't know what your teammates or your countries are like, or how strict they were, and if they were in bubbles before. Like we went into a bubble, and I think majority of Team Canada went into a bubble before we left, but I didn't know if other countries were doing that. And you know, there was a time where you're like, I'm here to compete and to race, and do I really want to risk that opportunity by going and like intermingling with people? It was kind of hard that way. But when I finished racing, we definitely like partied a little bit with like the other Team Canada athletes. So that was really fun. We got that opportunity. And yeah, I guess in other years it would be a little bit different, but I don't think I really like missed out on things, mostly because I didn't know, right? Like, you know, people that have been to Olympics, they might've known like, oh, this game's like, we kind of sucked in that sense because we weren't able to do things, but I've never been, so I don't really
So I loved it.
I got to party with a few people, and it was cool and fun, and probably would have liked to do more of it. But, you know, at the end of the day, we were also there to compete, and I did like meet other people, but I'm just going to have parties when I get home, or when I'm hanging out. I'll just go and hang out whenever COVID kind of settles down even more. I mean, apparently Alberta doesn't exist on March 1st. So once it's done, I mean, I'm actually not like, I'm home for a few days, but then I'm going to the World Sprint Championships tomorrow, which are in Norway. So like I kind of came home for a few days. I'm going back over to Europe, and then I come home and like the season's basically done. So I'm like, okay, then I can party and see people and celebrate.
So you said this was your first podcast, but I'm telling you, your segues, you're a damn pro, because I'm here to compete. How was the competition? What was like going into the first race, or what did you feel?
It was, so I had thankfully 2 practice races before leading into the big ones. So they just had like race, people could just sign up and they're like, yeah, we'll go through. It was for them as well to make sure that the timing system was working. They had everything, because like with skating, they are very, especially at the Olympics, they're very strict on like the timing because of also TV, right? So it's like my 1,000 meter, they're like, we are giving 3.5 minutes per pair. So like it will be down to the second. There's a little timer, like it will be down. So they're very like structured like that. So it's nice to have a couple of races to like get into that feeling, being like, hey, at 40 seconds, you need to be at the line. You need to get your armband. You need to get everything. So I'm really happy that I got the opportunity to do 2 races. I was only going to do 1, and then the first race was like, not good. And I just, you know, traveling to a different country is always big, but especially over to Asia, where like the time changes 15 hours, and, you know, first games, I was very overwhelmed. It was like, you get self-conscious and uncomfortable. There's so many, like, it's the same people I race, but there's so many more cameras and people and TV crew and photographers. And you're like, everyone's watching me.
Everybody's watching.
So, I just was really like mentally not great the first week I was there. And then the race just didn't go well. And I was like, I need another race. So I raced again, and that was better leading into the 15. And then I was like, I'm fine now. I got a couple races under my belt. I'm ready to go. And, you know, the Olympics is like such a big platform, and we have World Cups all the time, and to race, you have one time. I mean, for me, I had 2, but you have one day, one time, and you have to execute that race. Is for the majority of people, it doesn't happen, right? Like to go and have the race of your life. So, you know, I went and did the 15, and the first 1100 was good, and my last lap just wasn't there, and unfortunately didn't do as well as I wanted to. But I was like, I mean, I was upset, but I had talked to teammates before, and they're like, to be able to like have the race of your life at this high of stake and this pressure, it's like, it probably won't, it might come, but there's a good chance it won't. So you can't look at the race and define your like results or yourself as an athlete by that one race, because you made it here for a reason, that you were good enough. And if that one race didn't go well, that doesn't define you. It doesn't make you like a bad athlete or that you don't deserve to be here. So, you know, my 15, wasn't as great as I wanted to. I mean, there was good things about it, but I think more or less I was looking at the results of, I wanted to make the top 20 and I didn't. And, you know, if I could have been a little bit faster here or there, then I could have made it. But, and the same with the 1,000, I did have an unfortunate crossover problem in the 1,000 where my pair kind of almost took me out, but I mean, she was lucky. She was like, not like quick. She was a little bit further than she was, because if she had gone, she would have I would have bulldozed her, because I have about 20 to 30 pounds on her. And she came in and I was like, I don't fall down very easily. So you would have hit me and probably fallen. So that unfortunately then like, you know, I had to stand up and I lost a lot of speed, and that I obviously didn't get the result that I wanted to. But, you know, after coming home for a little bit too, I was like, you know, the results weren't there, but I also, those results don't define me as an athlete.
100%,
and,
yeah.
you know, I still proved myself to get there, and, you know, I did what I had to do, and I enjoyed the moments that I was there. I put a big smile on my face and I was like, I'm excited. I'm happy. Like, to being in this venue was amazing. It was, I think, well, it was supposed to hold 12,000 people. And like each day they allowed more people in there, or it seemed like it, but it was still just like an overwhelming sense of pride. And especially watching my races after the fact, because I watch every Olympics, and Steve Armitage is one of the commentators, and he's been doing it ever since I can remember, probably since at least 2006. But to hear him say like Maddison Pearman from Ponoka, Alberta, was like a surreal feeling. I'm like, I've been wanting to hear that man say my name for so long. So being able to like watch that back and hear it is, that was a surreal experience.
Amazing.
It was very emotional. And then I look back and I was like, 95% of the people that watch my race have zero idea about speed skating or how well I did, and are just proud that I'm there. The 5% of, speed skaters and, people back home are going to know that like that wasn't what I wanted or my best result, but majority of people don't. And they were just happy that I'm there. And I was like, those are the people that like I'm skating there for. The people that matter to me, those are the people that like don't care. So then I kind of look back and was like, it doesn't matter how, obviously I would have liked to do better, but at the end of the day, like I'm still an Olympian, and I still did the best I could those days, and they weren't the best, but I'm happy. I'm satisfied with who I am and how I did. So that's all I can really ask for.
That's a great way to look at it, because, in my career as a handball player, I've had some great games and I've had some real bombs.
Yeah.
And you just have to, you can piece, maybe this one wrong here and here, but your level, and maybe one was just there, but you're going up. So So what does the future hold? You said Italy is the next one. So
in 4 years. So
you're racing in like a couple days, so it just never stops.
It never stops. There was a couple girls. We only have 2 spots for the World Sprint Championships, and there was 2 girls ahead of me. But then they decided that they didn't want to go. They're a bit older, and I think with the games, they just wanted to finish it off there this season. And then I got the opportunity to go, and I was like, hell yeah, let's go. Like, I'll get some experience. Like, it only happens every 2 years. I was like, I'm going to come home and my body's not going to really know what's going on. And then I'm going to go to Norway. And I think, again, with like the races in Beijing, I wasn't super satisfied with. And this competition, I'll get four more races, 2 500s, 2000s to, execute at least one that I want to execute that like I will be, satisfied with. So I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? Let's go. I can make a bit of a trip out of it and go and, see some things and I'm racing in. And then, the season's pretty much done. We have one competition in a few weeks. That's big for a lot of people. For the Olympic team, it's not, because we made the Olympics, so the competition doesn't really matter for us, but I'm probably going to do one race there just to finish the season off. And then, my plan is another 4. I've made that decision, like, before I guess I made the Olympics this year, I wasn't sure if I could do another 4 without making the Olympics. Being in Calgary for, 2 Olympic opportunities and not making it, I was ready to kind of be like, I don't think this is happening for me. But now making it and having that experience and all that, I was like, hell yeah, I'm doing another 4.
There's no question. I'm there.
No question. Like, absolutely. And,
download Babbel, start speaking Italian.
I know. And, the big thing is my parents are super supportive and they're behind me. And I got my degree last year from the University of Calgary, and don't know what I'm going to do with it. It's a kinesiology degree, but I was like, hey, I got my degree. I went to the Olympics. I'll figure my life out later. And I can, work and go to school forever, but I can't skate forever. And so then I saw that Vancouver was putting in a bid for 2030, and I was like, damn it, do I have to do another 8 years? Do I got to skate another year? It's like, you know, it's not a far-fetched. I'll be 34. Like there was a lot of people in their like 30s at these games. And I'm like, oh man, if I keep skating well, like I might just have to do another 8, because skating on like your home country is just an experience that I would die for. So I'll take it for, you know, for 4 years.
4 years at a time.
4 years at a time. We'll figure it out there. But like, I'm absolutely so much more motivated and determined to keep skating and like definitely get on the podium in 4 years. Hopefully.
It's amazing. I love it. And I'm super proud of you. This is the first time I've ever met you, but I'm so into your story. I'm invested.
Thank you. Yeah.
But yeah, it's I remember going through our 4-year windows and like things would go bad, and or like if I had a bad game, I'm like, I'm back. I'll see. I'm leaving this or something. So that's so cool. Mm-hmm. And hey, if you do 8 more years, who's ruling out Flagbearer?
True. I got three Olympics under my belt. A few medals. Like, I mean, my teammate was we had one of the speed skaters was a Flagbearer in, and then like one of my close teammates was a Flagbearer out, Isabel Weidman. So I was like, hey, if she can do it, then I can do it, right? Like 4 years, like she went to the Olympics 4 years ago and like didn't medal. And I mean, she was a little bit higher up than I was, but I was like, anything can happen in 4 years. Yeah. There's people that were like, you know, didn't make top 24 years ago and they won gold this time around. So I was like, easy. Not easy, but you know, easily mentally to think about it.
Picture it.
I can picture that easy. I'll do it. I just now have to put the time and work for another 4 years.
Yeah. I gotta commend you again for your podcasting skills. Another great segue. Your teammate was the Flagbearer on the closing ceremonies. I want to get on the closing ceremonies and the games wrapping up. How did it feel when it all came to an end? And do you have to leave?
You know, yeah, it was a weird feeling. I didn't go to opening ceremonies. I decided with my coach, it just wasn't the best decision, racing a few days later. And you know, there's a lot of times you don't know what happened with opening ceremonies. Like sometimes you're standing around for hours and you don't get to eat. And I was like, I raced too close. I'm here to compete, so I need to race. So that was like, it was an internal struggle not going to the opening ceremonies because I really wanted to, but I was like, I also want to race well. So I was like, heck yeah, going to closing. Everyone always goes to closing. And yeah, we kind of had to wait around and whatnot, but walking in with the music and all the teams, because you come in the closing ceremonies, you all come in as one. Yeah. So we were kind of around Team Canada, but there was a lot of other countries kind of around walking down the stage and to like just look around. And there was fans there, or I guess people in the stands, but it wasn't full. Yeah. But the Bird's Nest is amazing. It's so big. It's so crazy. And I'm just like imagining 2008 Usain Bolt, like it's filled with people. I was like, it's not, but I'm imagining that it's filled with people screaming. And it was surreal, like walking around. And I FaceTime my parents and my sisters, and there was just so much excitement, you know, that like, you know, we're ending, but like we made it, we did it. And then it was this bittersweet feeling because, you know, I didn't want the games to end, obviously, but at the same time, I was like, I really want to go home. I want to go celebrate with my friends and my family and see them. And they've been so supportive. So it's like, I want to go home and be with them. So it was like both, we were there.
How long you've been in that bubble too, your own personal kind of bubble. That's a long time. So
it's a long time. And like, we were there for basically a month too. So then like that went by really quick. And I was like, yeah, you know, I'm really excited and I'm really happy I got here. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm ready to go home. Like I had my experience, like absolutely, but like it's time to go home and kind of like start to process everything. Cause you really don't process things when you're there. You're in your own little world with like the best athletes in the world trying to like win. And then you come back and you're like, it's not the same. And you need to process all those like, you know, years and years of work to those like 3 weeks. And then you're like, now I'm home and things are kind of back to normal.
Yeah. It's crazy, right?
It's crazy. Yeah.
Does it feel, I've had this experience before. Does it feel like it happened? Like you're home now. Does it feel like it happened? Cause I remember tournaments and stuff. I'm like, that didn't happen, did it? You have pictures, you have this stuff, but
you know, I would agree. It doesn't really feel like it happened. And I think too, like talking with my parents when I got home, like they kind of were there along with me on the journey. So I didn't have to go into depth of like everything that happened. Yeah. And I know I've got a bunch of school visits and people to see when I go back to Ponoka. So I think maybe at that point when I have to start reliving it all, it might start feeling more real.
Yeah.
But then it also might just be feeling like I'm telling a story, because then I'm like, I don't know, was I there? Did I do this? Like, I don't know. But yeah, and it's, you know, people around me, like close friends, they've kind of, again, been there with me. So when I'm here, I'm not really like telling a lot of people about it, because
they maybe even told them already. They know.
I've already told them I've done things. So yeah, when I go home and have to really like explain the whole scenario and the situations that we were in and give all the presents to people, then it might feel more real, I guess. Because it still does. It's just like, it's a weird feeling.
Yeah,
right?
I know that feeling. It's hard to describe. Like, it really, I played over in Denmark and France and stuff. And when I come home to Onaway, Alberta, it's like nothing changes. And it's like, oh, hey.
Oh, hi. Yeah.
Closing ceremony. So you're with all these people, you're with everybody in the stadium and stuff. Was there ever a moment where you were starstruck? You met someone that maybe you've seen race, or someone was famous, you ran into what's his name? How I'm just drawing a blank. The US snowboarder.
Sean White.
Yeah, Sean White. Yeah.
I ran into him. The thing that was like unfortunate again with COVID too is that a lot of people left early. And I think people sometimes leave early from the games if they're like very at the beginning and they don't want to stay there for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But I know like my teammates that raced kind of in the more beginning middle, once they were done, the COC and I think like Canadian Olympic Committee and then the Beijing Olympic Committee wanted people out. And I think the COC pushed it a little bit more because they're like, you're done. And like, yes, you've had this experience, but we don't want you to get stuck here. That was their worry of people getting stuck there. So they kind of started like booting people out. And I think people also had the opportunity if they wanted to leave. So we didn't get to see a ton, like the people that I think I really would have been starstruck. I did see Mark McMorris and I was in an elevator with him and I was like, hi. They came in and I was like, hi. And then I like looked at his crowd and I was like, oh my God. Cause I had a big crush on him like 8 years ago at Sochi, like, oh. And I was like, I got so starstruck and I should have been like, congrats on the medal, but I didn't. And I was like, bye. Have a good day. And I was like, oh my God, why didn't I say anything? And I wanted to get a picture with him, but like they just came in for a few days and then he left. So I didn't get that opportunity, but it's also hard with masks. Like I really couldn't tell who they were. And like, I Eric Stahl too was like one of the hockey team, right? Like you kind of know some of them and I'm a bit older. So like some of the younger guys, like the younger guys on my team were like, oh, there's like the guys, they were like first round picks or like in the first round. And I was like, cool, they're too young for me. So I'm not really like, they're young babies. So I don't really know them anymore. But yeah, I talked to I met the men's curling team, like Team Gushu. And that was pretty cool. Cause like one of my teammates is a big curling fan. So we did watch a lot of them. And so we did kind of like party with them a little bit. And I was like, hey guys, like great game. Like let the cool medals. Like that was kind of like really cool to see. And there's a couple guys on like some of the management in hockey that I was like, I've seen you before on TV. Like I don't know you, but like I know who you are. So that was pretty cool. I think I would have died if the NHL guys were there though. Like that's just something different, like to seeing them around and like being in the same vicinity. And like we're all athletes, we're all the best athletes in the world, but there's just something different about them because you see them on TV and like, you know, they're a lot more famous.
Multi-millionaires.
So there wasn't too many people, but yeah, I think like some of like the skiers and people that were at different villages, because there was 3 villages when we were there. And so we were at the one with like speed skating, hockey, curling, figure skating. I think that's the main ones. And then some of the skiing events came in for a few days and out. So we didn't really get to see like, I'm not like a super big fan of like any of those sports. I mean, like I'm a big fan of hockey, but because there wasn't like a ton of like big names.
Yeah.
I didn't really know a ton of people. So Mark probably was the best one.
That's cool.
I kind of lost my chance there to like talk to him. Like, you know, I saw
You blew it.
Yeah, I really did.
In the elevator. Be cool.
I know. At least there was another.
Pan Am Games, I remember I met Larry Walker, the baseball. He was coaching the baseball team, and then he made the Hall of Fame like 2 years ago. And then it was like some of the NBA players were there with Team Canada, and it's like, oh, these guys are huge.
Yeah, you're like, this is awesome. This is really cool. I think honestly, that's one of the things that like so many people are smaller. than I thought they were at the Olympics.
Yeah.
And I think it's because it's like a lot of like smaller sports, but some of the figure skaters and even some of like the speed skaters and short track that like I don't see, I'm like, damn, you are so much shorter than I thought you were. Like you look so much bigger on TV. And like say that camera adds 10 pounds. I'm like, I think the camera adds like 10 inches or something. Like I'm walking across these people and they're like 5'5". And I was like, I thought you were like the same height as me. Like I'm 5'8". I'm not that tall, but like, yeah, I think that's one of the things that I was shocked about how small people were. When
you meet people, it's like, wow, okay.
Yeah. And again, I'm not that tall. Like I'm not 6 something, but I was like, yep, these people are definitely smaller.
So I always end the show with a rapid fire, and I don't give you any prep for this. So I'm going to love your answers. You were saying how you were going to go around to schools and everything, and then maybe it'd start to hit in. So I don't want to hype you up too much, but now you're in a lifelong legend status. You're an Olympian. You're the best. So embrace it and tell everybody.
Okay, I will try to.
But you're also now a role model for young female athletes. And what kind of would you say to a girl who's 10 years old, 12 years old, feeling maybe self-conscious about sport or something like that? What would your message kind of be to young women athletes?
I've actually had like a couple people reach out via Instagram, just like you did, about asking me like to do things for like the girls in their school or like their daughters. And I work with Fast and Female, which is a nonprofit organization that helps keep girls in sport. And, I really have to I have to think about it a lot, because like with my parents, like my mom was so supportive, and so was my dad and he loved coaching girls. Like he always was our soccer coach. He also has three daughters, so he kind of was like pushed into that. But even when he was a teacher, he always loved coaching like the women's team. So just having such supportive parents, and that I never really like occurred to me that I had to like that people, I guess, didn't have that opportunity or didn't have that support system of pushing their kids into, not even pushing their kids into sport, but exposing their kids to sport. And I know a lot of young girls do drop out. So, I just think of the opportunities that you get. And, a lot of times in sport, yes, you become maybe sometimes more self-conscious, but at the same time, I think it gives you so much confidence. Like I had so much more confidence than I think some of my friends did growing up, of like going out and like putting myself out there and talking to people, because sport always puts you in those like uncomfortable situations and pushes boundaries. So I think that is something that it's really helped me gain confidence over these last couple of years. I think I've gained a lot of confidence being put in situations that I wouldn't have gotten outside of sport. So I think I really have to actually like think about what I'm gonna tell kids, because they're also young and you don't want to get too deep into it, but at the same time I'm like, how do I had such good role models in my life to like get me that. So I think I gotta.
Well, I'm glad I could prep you for your school visits.
I mean, it really, and I'm going to talk to my mom about it. And like, I've got close family friends that have been big role models. And I'm like, what did you say to me when I was 10 and I didn't want to do this? And I think it was just because it was ingrained in our brain from such a young age that sport was so important. And like, I was so competitive with the boys. And then when we had to start like, splitting into soccer, I was like, no, I want to play with the guys. Like I'm beating these kids. Like I don't want to go with these fools. I was like, I don't want to go with them. Like, and so I think it just like building the confidence and knowing that like sport can give you that confidence if you do feel a bit, uncomfortable in sport, and, not to worry about what people think, because I think one of the things is like, you always think that everyone is looking at you and judging you. And like, in the grand scheme of things, like they're not. And if they are, then they're not worth your time. And they're not going to help you succeed. So like get them out of there anyway.
That's great. I think you've got this down pat already.
Okay. I'll have to work on it a little bit. But thanks for prepping me.
Yeah, no worries. So we are going to go into a rapid fire, and then I'll let you go. Before we get into rapid fire, Calgary Flames game tonight.
Yes.
So we should all tune in to watch you cry at the anthem.
Yes. Yeah. Look for me in my mask. I don't know what I'm going to be wearing yet, but you probably won't be able to tell me because I'm wearing a mask, but I'll be the one blonde girl crying.
All right. Are you ready for rapid fire? This is first thing that pops in your head. We have got, I think, 8 questions.
Okay.
All right. You ready?
Yeah.
Who's your favorite Canadian musician?
Nickelback.
Nice. You are Ponoka. What's the best food you make?
Ooh, these pesto chicken calzone things in my air fryer. I made them last night.
Nice. Those sound delicious. You're going on vacation. Are you going to the mountains or the beach?
The beach comes to my mind right now because I want something warm. But I love the mountains.
Of your training exercises, which is your favorite and which is your least favorite?
I would say skating is my favorite and running is my least. I ain't built to run. I'm built to skate.
Be honest. Can you skate faster than me?
Oh, just a little bit, I think. A little bit faster, I think.
Do you have a go-to pre-race pump-up song?
I have a few pump-up songs that I go to. I can't even remember what they're called. It's like Here to Party or something. And then Peanut Butter Jelly Time always gets me. I don't know why that one I have. And then there's another song that my coach actually just randomly put on my phone a couple years ago, and it says Get Ready to Die by Andrew something. And I'm like, yeah, I'm getting ready to go die out here. Like, got to put it all out
Andrew WK. There. It's like really hard.
Yeah. I don't know why that song. I'm like, I'm like biking and I'm like, okay, I'm getting ready to go die here. Like, I'm like 15, go hard and die.
Yeah, mine is normally I'm Coming Home by P. Diddy. That one hits me. I think I saw a commercial for some like the Blue Jays playoff series or something. I'm like, oh, that's my one.
Yep. That's it. Yeah.
What would you consider your favorite ice cream topping?
Ooh, sprinkles. That's came to my mind.
And I feel like I might know this answer. Who would you consider to be your personal hero?
My parents.
Yeah.
I think both of them absolutely were instrumental in my entire life, and they still are today. And as a kid, you think you have like, I don't know, a kid, you think about the role models that like are on TV and everything. And, you know, as I've gotten older, I was like, it's absolutely my parents.
That's so nice. I hope they hear that.
I hope so. I know, they know I'm like extremely grateful for them. And they always say how proud of me they are. But sometimes I don't think that they get the same, like, I'm like, I'm so lucky to have you guys like be supporting me and letting me, like, you guys sacrificed so much growing up to like allow us to go and skate and do all the sports that we wanted to. Like my sister plays volleyball at Red Deer College, and you guys have given us everything to be giving us all the opportunities to be able to do this and follow our dreams. And
yeah,
I hope that they know how grateful I am for them. And I think they do, but sometimes I think they need to hear it more.
Little reminder is nice.
Yeah.
Well, Maddison, I don't want to keep you too much longer. Flames game tonight. And thank you for being on the podcast.
Thanks so much for reaching out. Now I want to do all these podcasts.
Yeah, you're a star now.
Thank you.
And to everyone listening, this has been episode 51 of the Always Moving podcast. I'm your host, Lyndon Suvanto. Maddison, take care.
Thank you.
Congrats
Thank you
again.
so much for having me. Yeah, thank you.
And as we say around these parts, let's keep this thing moving.